Shipki Choshimeto Tramare Rabalingashi Nide Gempadi Sange Shinto Mikte Ulawarki Drokunam da shingla che parasho yedam guru ratna mindrala kamnirya dayami Sangye chedan tsoge chanam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi chishe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chanam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi chishe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar Sho sangye chedan tsoge chanamla jancho pardo dani kyapsuchi dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye druparasho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo yal haye ke dan ludan chinke drubundan da mi kenam dan drubo kunge janam chitsampa tamche ke to dagi cheten.
Good morning. I wanted to begin today with a question that I've asked myself many times, and I'd like to ask it here, which has to do a little bit with where everything has begun. This idea. People have asked me, according to Buddhism, what's the beginning of everything? Where do we come from? How did everything start? The universe, existence. Can you all hear well? And to be very sincere, when we ask this question, where did everything begin? First of all, sometimes I think it's difficult to find the answer when the problem isn't the actual question, but it isn't the answer, but it's the question. So the question isn't really where did everything begin, but the question should be, is there an actual beginning? Because if our answer is no, there's no answer, we could spend our lives looking for, where that beginning is. But if it doesn't exist, we're not going to find it. So my first answer would be, I don't know. I mean, if I had to be sincere, we can reflect, talk a lot about it. I can tell you, according to Buddhist philosophy, it's said that we exist from beginningless time. Because philosophically speaking, we can't establish something that is both cause, but is not a result. So if I give a cause, I mean, that cause, where did that cause come from? So we're not able to establish a primordial cause, let's say. Everything has its beginning, but that thing also had its beginning that came previously. So when we try to understand, my very personal my answer would be, it doesn't really matter, in the sense that there's some certainties, and it's important for me to work on these certainties. If we ask, where it all began, where do we come from, we can spend, like I said before, hours and hours. One says one thing, another says another. But there are some certainties on which there's a lot to work. And it seems irresponsible, even for ourselves, to overlook these certainties and not take care of them, and to put energy into something that's not going to bear fruit. The fundamental point of certainty, because independently of where everything began, if it began, where we've come from, whatever your question is, we can answer. We can ask another question which goes to the other direction. Where is it that we want to go? Where direction are we setting for ourselves? And this brings us to a fundamental point of our own nature. And when I say nature, I don't mean only human beings. This has to do with all living beings, sentient beings. We have this tendency to want to be in harmony. The songs that were just offered to us spoke about the importance and the beauty of such harmony. So it's what nature looks for, to bring us to a harmonious state. What we're looking for in a non-conceptual way is to not suffer, to be well. I mean, no one wants to be in conflict. No one wants to suffer. We all want to be in harmony. We all want to be well. And this is the direction that we set for ourselves. Not just us, but any living being. There's that anecdote that my master, again, Lakpa, one day in India, we look outside the window and there were cows. And those of you who've already been to India, you've seen how cows are just integrated into daily life in the city or in the countryside. So there were also cows everywhere outside the monastery, and we look at it. looking at a cow grazing, and he asked me, what's the difference between us and a cow? If we live exclusively for a comfortable survival. I said, explain better to me. He said, well, look at the cow. When he goes to eat, when there's fresh grass or dry grass, what does the cow choose? The cow chooses fresh grass. He's looking for pleasure of fresh grass. And when it's very hot, and it's very sunny, but there's also some shade, where does the cow go? It tries to find shade. So if we live our lives trying to avoid suffering and experience pleasure, then there's not much difference between us and a cow. Of course, we're not saying that we are exactly like cows. I mean, there are many differences, but in reality, I mean, and also we don't know cows very well. I mean, we have this idea that animals or beings that don't speak English or Italian or a language that we can understand, that they are inferior or ignorant. I don't know. Recently, I've wanted to get closer to the world of bees. I mean, imagine these small little beings, these bees. A bee travels about 4 kilometers from its hive. And in those 4 kilometers, they know where the flowers are to get the nectar. Because there's a bee that goes before who actually gives the coordinates. It does a kind of dance to show where the coordinates are, and directs the other bees to the nectar. Now, today, if someone gave us coordinates if we didn't have a GPS in our hands, we wouldn't know where to go. Just that. I just close the parentheses here because people have said to me in the past, "Oh, it's not right to compare us to cows because we're intelligent beings." I don't know. I've never studied cows. I don't know exactly. But the point here is not to say if we're the same or different from cows. The point is that we want the same things. At the end of the day, we want to be happy. We want to be well. And we don't want to suffer. And this is the direction that we all set for ourselves. And this brings me an image of my own childhood. There was a cartoon that I liked as a child. I watched it in Brazil. It was called the corrida maluca, the crazy race. And the image that stayed in my mind was that there's the race. We do a race to win, but it seems like they're setting a race for themselves to be the last. So we all want to be well. We all want to be happy, and there's no one who doesn't want that. And we're looking for that constantly. Once Lama Ganchen said to me, deeply at the end, in the deepest part of our beings, we know that it is possible to live in harmony, to transcend suffering. And that's why that we have that certainty, that's why we're able to try again and again and again, start over and try again. Again, this reminds me of my childhood, where I was absolutely fixated on video games up until about 11 years old. But I spent so many nights playing video games. Anyway, in the video game, you try the game finishes, game over, and then you try again. And we're all quite similar. We do something. We project our happiness onto something. We smash our face against the wall. We see it doesn't work. And we say, okay, let's start from the beginning. Let's see if it the next time goes better. And then we trip and we fall. It doesn't end well. Okay, let's try again. Let's see if this goes better. And we keep repeating. We have a level of perseverance that is impressive. The main point is not if we love ourselves or not, if we wish ourselves well or not, because love understood as attraction to happiness, because the definition of love is to be attracted to happiness. I love you. I'm attracted to your happiness. I want you to be happy. I love myself. I'm attracted to my happiness, and I want to be happy. On one side, it's really quite simple, isn't it? But love has quite an important problem, because if I'm attracted to your happiness and I'm attracted to my happiness, what is it that I mean by happiness? Where do I project this happiness? And this is the main key. The key is not, do I want to be well or not? No, we all want to be well. There's no one, absolutely no one, who doesn't want his own well-being. The fundamental point is, how can I get there? Where do I project my happiness? What does my well-being depend on? What does my happiness depend on? And what the opposite? What does my unhappiness, my suffering depend on? And it's strange because there's that phrase. I don't remember it exactly in this moment. It's where Einstein says, to err is human, to persevere is diabolic. I don't know if it's Einstein, actually. He has a similar saying, but the real ignorance is to do something, see the result, and then keep repeating it. And this is something similar, Einstein said. But there's some places where we project our happiness, and I think that most of us we've experienced enough to know that just doesn't work. We've seen that story enough to know that that doesn't work. But not having an alternative, we just keep on that story. Also because we're made up of habits more than understandings, let's say. The strength that pushes us to make the choices that we make more than our own understanding is our conditioning, our habits. Understanding is important, but it's not that useful in the sense that it's a starting point, a fundamental starting point, but it's not our arrival point. We're made up of habits. So it's a path of slowly changing these habits. But I wanted to bring to you today was this question: where is it that we project our happiness? And is it working or not? And are there any alternatives? Because Buddha, in his teachings, the first step along the spiritual path was about looking at where we project our happiness, to look again at that choice. I don't know how often you've asked yourself, where is it that I project my happiness? To review that. I don't know, it's a question that someone has formally asked you. Someone asks you, what job do you want to do as you're an adult? Or where do you project your happiness? We've never been formally asked this. Is there a subject at school? Happiness? Where do we project? Where do we project it? maybe someone has had that great opportunity, but most of us, I mean, this is not part of our daily existence. It's a question. Okay, we're going to get here. The first question, the first point is asking us this question. And what's important, we need to see what I ask. Actually, what you're asking, there's actually a question before. Before I say, where do I want to project my happiness? There's another point. Where am I projecting my happiness now, even if I'm not conceptually aware of that? Because we all, whether we want it or not, we inherit a worldview. And it's within this worldview. Within this worldview, we all are already projecting our happiness somewhere. This is a part of our cultural heritage, of our worldview, where we project our happiness. And each one of us, according to where one is born and raised, it receives so much. And in the context in which we were raised, we have inherited this worldview where we live without ever being really aware of it. I mean, we already are projecting our happiness somewhere. So I'd like to begin today with this reflection. Where are we? Where do we already project our happiness? Is it working for me or not? To get to the next question, which is is there another alternative? Where can I project my happiness? So as a starting point, there are two possibilities. We can even create some kind of hybrid possibility, but let's start with these two. The most common is where we believe that our state of well-being and happiness and balance, and then on the other side, suffering, because let's remember that happiness and suffering are two sides of the same reality. So when there's suffering, there's no happiness. When there's happiness, there's no suffering. They go together. The first view is where we think that our state of happiness or suffering depends on something external. Depends on where I am, with whom I am, what happens around me, etc. Consequently, our tendency is to want to be sure that everything goes the way I want it to go. And Buddha summarized this into 3 points. And when the first time I saw this, I was really touched when I saw this. He said, we project our happiness in quite an instinctive way into 3 things. Into obtaining objects of desire, in having what we want, and not just I want a car, I want that, not just material thing. It's part of this, but it includes also a person or other people. We have this illusion of being able to possess people. I want to have my this, my that. But this includes also how we want things to be. So I will be happy when that situation will be like this, or that situation will be like that. When I'll be able to obtain this, that, or the other. We project an idealized image on the world around us, and we're not talking about the whole planet Earth. We're talking about our own small reality, and we have this idealized image, and we think once everything goes the way I want it to go, I will be fine. I'll be happy. So this first point that we believe, where we project our happiness, is thinking that we can have what we want. And the second point is we think that we can avoid what we don't want. So what are the things, the situations, the behaviors around us that make me suffer? So as long as you act like this, I'll be unhappy. As long as that will be like this, I won't be happy. So I want to obtain everything that I think is good for me. I want the world to be the way I think it should be, excluding everything that I don't want. And then there's a third point. How long should this all last? Forever. Or rather, because when we need to be separated from something that we like, we suffer, don't we? Normally we do. So we project our happiness mostly on these 3 points. Having what we want, avoiding what we don't want, and holding on to what we like. And how much energy do we put into our lives? How much energy do we spend trying to get these 3 things? And if we take these 3 points and we turn them around, it means we think that we suffer because we can't have what we want. The person doesn't act the way that he should act. The situation isn't the way it should be. Now I wish it were warmer. It's not warm enough. Things are not the way I think they should be, and we think we're suffering because of that. We think that we're suffering because we have to interact with situations, objects, and the situations that we don't like, and we think that we are suffering because we have to be separated from the things that we do like. So let's allow ourselves for just a moment to imagine, just to dream. How would it be for us if we were able, really able, to have everything we want? Just think for a moment. Without philosophizing too much, the world around you, everything you want is there. What you don't want isn't. And the things that we like, they last forever. Would we be happy or not? I think so. Sincerely speaking, if I can have everything I want, avoid everything I don't want, then at the beginning, yes. I mean, but we know that we wouldn't be happy because it's not possible. There's this saying in Italy, the more I have, the more I want. So how can I have everything that I want if the more I have, the more I want? This connects me to the definition with economy. An economist friend in Brazil gave me this classic definition of economy or economics. Economics is it's the science to be able to satisfy the infinite desires of man with the finite resources of nature. Let me just repeat that. It's so economics is the science to satisfy the infinite desires of man with the finite resources of the planet. I mean, that's crazy in the sense, actually, it's nice because it's really sincere. Because can something infinite be ever satisfied? No. So it's obvious that it's obvious that there is a constant growth is necessary. You know, we have this illusion that it's possible to grow constantly, exponentially, because we need to grow, because we need to we want to satisfy this infinite desire that with resources that are finite. So let's let the economics, put economics on the side, coming back to us. So this idea of being able to satisfy, of being able to have everything we want is an illusion. I mean, are we able to see that? Let's say that we had some kind of magical power, where everything that we want we're able to obtain. Does that bring us satisfaction? I don't know how many of you have ever experienced something very, very difficult inside, where we feel that experience where we have that inner void, but we don't even know what we want, what can fill that void. That experience of not knowing what we want is worse than identifying something that we want but can't have. I've seen many, many people, unfortunately, in situations where life, for various reasons, brought them to have more or less anything that they wanted. Let's imagine a very favorable material lifestyle where you're missing nothing, sensory pleasures, material objects. I mean, before, in the past, there's there was the special Christmas day or special Christmas lunch. But today we think, oh my gosh, my goodness, Christmas dinner, all that food, because we just have too much. But we have a very, very we have a life where really we have just about everything. And I've known many people who've had so much that they don't even know what else they wanted. So the more I have, the more I want. And you get to a point where you still want something that comes from this inner void, this dissatisfaction, but I don't know where to project this desire. Because once I have an idea, there's hope that once I get that, I won't suffer anymore. Okay, the fault of my suffering, the reason for my suffering is not having the car that I want, not having the husband or the wife that I want. But once I get that, then I'll be happy. At least there's hope. But if you don't even know, if you don't even have an object on which to project your happiness, your desire, then it's worse. So I will be happy once I get everything that I want. It's quite clear that it's an illusion. People say, okay, Lama, but maybe up to a certain point, I'd like to have these things. But no, it doesn't work. Because as long as I project my happiness on having what I want, I'm stuck in that infinite loop. The example that I've given several times is I went to a school in Milan, and this really touched me. School Maria Pizziconi in Milan, a very beautiful school. There's actually even there's a little farm inside, and this is quite a few years ago. At that time, I had a lot more time, and I would go where I was invited, and without really knowing what I was supposed to do. And I was invited to this school. There was a kind of gym. A hall, and there were just hundreds of very small children, 5 years old, 6 years old, and there were teachers around. And I said, what am I supposed to do? And the teachers say, well, talk about Buddhism. I said, how much time do I have? An hour and a half. Okay, so I started talking about Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths. in a simple way. But what I understood, and which was really beautiful, that small children, they're not afraid to answer questions the way adults are, and they answer all in chorus all together. And so I would ask a question, they would answer. It was really, really a nice moment. At a certain point, I asked the children, is there by any chance a toy or something that you'd like to have? They all answer, yes. Has it ever happened that at Christmas time or during your birthday that you were able to get what you wanted? Yes. Were you happy? Yes. Do you still have the toy? Yes. Does it make you as happy as it did before? No. Do you want another toy? Yes. How long will that toy make you happy? A long time or short time? And a little bit upset, concerned with a little less enthusiasm, they answer, just a short time. They weren't spiritually evolved children who had already understood that material things are illusions. We all know this. What's the problem? That since we're children, we keep trying to change the toy, because first we have a little toy and then a little car, and then we have a doll, and then we have a video game, and then we have clothes, and then we have a car, and then we have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and then we have a social position and a career. And once I was with a friend, we were in Brazil, and he was about to get onto his private plane. And before getting on the plane, he looked at me and he said, the only difference between big and small boys is the size of their toys. He said it in English. And it's true. What happens is that we're constantly changing our toys because we don't know another game. But really, you don't need a degree in philosophy or a 3-year meditational retreat to have this awareness, this understanding that projecting our happiness onto material things is an illusion, right? What happens that even if we know and understand, and we don't need a lot to understand it in our daily life, where do we project our happiness? I need this, I'm lacking that. Once I do this, I'll be happy. If that person does this, it would be better. I'm not happy because I'm missing that and I wanted this, right? So the question, where I am projecting my happiness is not a philosophical question. It's something really deep within. But if philosophizing, we see that it's an illusion to project our happiness onto getting what we want, remembering something important. There's nothing wrong. There's something negative about having things that we like. The problem isn't having a car, having money, having a relationship with someone with whom we get along, having a beautiful house, whatever it is that you can have. There's no problem in having things, including relationships with others. The problem is projecting onto these things things that they cannot sustain, uphold, which is our happiness. There's nothing wrong with having desires and having things. What doesn't work is projecting a weight that can't be upheld. If someone comes to you and says, you're the love of my life, I can't live without you, run. I'm joking a little bit, but Because if there's something that doesn't work, is projecting our own happiness onto someone else. Because if you are the love of my life and I can't live without you, I can't live without you, and you know, I would be unhappy without you.
Quando proiettiamo la felicità su qualcuno, tu sei l'amore della mia vita, non posso vivere senza.
So if I project my happiness on to someone who, so when someone projects his happiness onto someone else, and I can't be happy without you, and then we're together, and then one day I'm unhappy, then whose fault is it? It must be yours, because before you used to make me happy, and now I'm not happy. You've changed. It must be your fault. So it's important for us to observe this inner process, that it's an illusion. Stop projecting our happiness onto what is around us. The second point is avoiding things that we don't like. Is that possible? I've never known anyone for whom everything has always gone well, not even for a short time. I've known marvelous people, starting from Lama Michel Rinpoche, marvelous people. I've known people who, for me, I think about the abbot of Kachin Luson Supo Rinpoche, who was the abbot of Tashi Lumpo Monastery, also a master, a teacher of Lama Ganshin, who was an absolutely marvelous, marvelous person. But look, these people, did they have problems? They had many. Rinpoche once said, if you, and those people who were around him, them, if you had the problems that I have had, you wouldn't survive. I mean, having to manage very serious problems. I mean, he had situations that were really, really heavy. And normally, I mean, what we're complaining about, they're jokes. What's the main difference? I mean, he was able to maintain in all of those situations able to maintain his balance without ever losing his inner balance or peace. But I've never known anyone who's had let's call it a perfect life filled with perfect situations. Sometimes I hear, well, these kinds of things shouldn't happen in a family. And I ask, why? What is a family? I mean, there are many, many things. A family is many things, but one way of seeing a family is a group of people. What do we need to have harmony in the family? We need the harmony among all the mental defilements of each one, because one is a little bit angry, one is a little bit jealous, the other one is envious, one feels lonely, another one feels abandoned, one has holding on to resentment, another is full of dissatisfaction. And when we put many people together, family or not, for there to be harmony among them, we need to have harmony among the mental defilements. If there's harmony within, then there's harmony among the group. Have you ever known a perfect family? I haven't. We say, from far away, everyone seems normal. Even that couple, that perfect couple, get a little closer. Go to see the daily life. Certainly there'll be beautiful things, and there'll also be difficult things. The only possibility to have a perfect couple would be a couple made of two Buddhas, two perfectly enlightened beings. Or a family, a perfect family is a family of Buddhas. of a group of people who are perfectly enlightened. Of course, at that point, it's a perfect family. Otherwise, it's part of life to all these mental defilements, and from traumas, dissatisfaction and anger and resentment. People say, "Oh, you didn't know my parents, how they were." Of course, there are situations that are better. There are situations that are difficult. Personally, I had wonderful parents. Perfect? No. Sometimes people say, I. Sometimes people say, I really don't want to do anything that would traumatize my children. And I say, that's impossible. You can do your best, and that's already a lot. There's so much one can do. But it's normal as we interact that one understands differently, that there are misunderstandings, that there are wounds created along one's lifetime. Also because there's another factor here. Let me try to explain without getting into too many details. None of us is able to live or perceive anything independently from the filter of himself. Our system, and I can't find another word, our mind and body, this whole, it is naturally looking for balance. And when there's something that is outside of this balance, this part that's out of balance, it comes to the surface so that we can deal with it. When we have a physical problem, we have pain. It's an alarm system that our body has that is showing us. If someone knows how to read well. I met a doctor in Nepal, for example, Manavadra. I went to him. I had a pain here in my neck, and it went. Doctors told me I needed to be operated upon. He said, no, it's your liver. Take these very, very nasty tasting pills, and after 3 weeks, that pain was gone. But he was able to read. He was able to read just my face. And another time, I went to him another time. I mean, he was the doctor of the king. He was very well known, but he had this tiny little medical studio, and he never accepted anything fancier. Let's just imagine a room that was maybe 4 by 5 meters. It was with a long corridor, and then the room was a little bit larger, a very long bench where people, on one side, people were seated on a bench waiting, and on the other side of the room, there was a small little curtain, and there was no privacy. I mean, he's visiting you, and everyone else was on the bench outside, and there was no fixed cost. People would offer what they wanted. One day, someone accompanied me, and he visited me, and then afterwards to the person said, "And you?" And the person said, "No, I'm just here accompanying him." He said, "Oh, but don't you have this, that, and the other?" And the person was really surprised because it was true. And he said, "I can see from your face." I mean, someone who is able to read our body. I mean, our body is constantly showing so much. The other day, just a few days ago, I had a direct experience of this. I had a treatment with a Chinese doctor who's taking care of my cervical spine, and there was someone else there. And then at the end, she said, "Your face is totally changed," because our face shows what's happening when we're used to reading it. What I mean to say is our body is constantly giving signs of what is going awry, showing us, trying to tell us what we need to change so that we can recreate this balance. The problem is we don't listen to these messages. The same thing happens with our mind. When we have wounds, deep wounds that are unresolved, tensions, call them what you want, traumas. We can give many different names. I don't want to use the psychological terms because those are also specific to a different context. Well, let's call them inner blocks, unresolved blockages. Until we resolve them, they will keep resurfacing. And we live our reality, we live our world through these. So in my lifetime, if at a certain point I feel abandoned, it could be something from childhood or sometime after, but let's say at a certain point, I have this strong feeling of abandonment, and I stay with this idea that I am an abandoned person. After time goes by, the situation changes, but that feeling stays, and I live my world through that feeling. And so even on a subconscious level, I'm going to create situations so that I can feel abandoned, because that wound wants to show itself so it can be taken care of. And one mistake that we made, instead of saying, oh, there's a wound, we say, oh, look how I'm abandoned, and we reinforce that wound. We rip it open even more. So as long as my filters are dirty, I'm going to see the world through that. I can't avoid everything I don't like. The only possibility that exists is to get rid of everything that I don't like. Otherwise, there will always be things. When I think of Lama Michel Rinpoche, and it was the most special person that I knew, that I was close to. He had many difficult situations, but they were not causes of suffering because he was fine. So the only way to avoid everything that we don't want is to not have things that we don't want. Otherwise, we will always have difficult situations. Are you following? Third point, just briefly, avoid being separated from the things we like. It's quite ignorant as an idea, isn't it? Because what's this very simple rule that we all know, that as soon as something begins, it's this process of ending is already started. And it's not negative. Thank goodness it's like this, that everything is in constant transformation and movement, that gives us the possibility to transform, to better, to change. But everything that begins will end, it as we know it. So thinking that we can hold on to something forever is a great illusion. So these three things onto which we project our happiness is absolutely illusory. We could go into deeper detail. In that first category, for example, what I want. We have sensory pleasures, we have people, we have material objects, we have an idealized image of reality and situations. What I don't want, there are material things, there are behaviors, situations, etc. So the first important step is to observe that we are in this reality, and it's not because we're Westerners. No, Buddha talked about this more than 2,500 years ago. The same realities that were present in Tibet more than 1,500 years ago. So it's something quite present in our reality. Let's say we can call it a factory defect somehow. It's important for us somehow to get to this understanding that projecting our happiness onto these things is illusory, is impossible. The problem isn't the things. It's not in having pleasurable things or trying to avoid unpleasant things or trying to stay with the things that we like. The problem is projecting our happiness onto those things and becoming slave to these things, living for these things. Because how much energy in our lives do we use up for these three things? If we look around us in our society, a lot, no? But here's the question, is there an alternative? And here I'd like to explain it in a way that's a little different than what we're used to. This alternative. Let me just take a step backwards, excuse me. Someone who has an unhealthy lifestyle, who is addicted to something that is harmful, be it sugar or tobacco or alcohol. Someone who is addicted to sugar, for example, projects his happiness on sugar, doesn't he? Yes. Even though he knows that it's not healthy. If that addiction is to alcohol, he projects his happiness onto alcohol, even though we know that it's not healthy, not good. This explain that it comes because when we're in a state of balance, when we're healthy means balanced. We're attracted to that which maintains our balance. Let's imagine something actually balanced. So when something is balanced, gravity the gravity keeps it balanced. When something is out of balance, then that energy, that force, brings it down. Once a doctor explained this to me, said that a person who's sick, according to the kind of sickness he has, is attracted to a lifestyle and food that actually increases the sickness. And this is the answer to why do we like the things that are bad for us? Because we're sick. We're in a state of non-balance, of imbalance. So the first fundamental step for loving ourselves is where we're able to distinguish between what I want and what is good for me. To learn how to give more priority to what is good for me than to what I want. And in my opinion, we're faced with two of the greatest challenges that we have in our life. This is about the beginning of our path to loving ourselves. We have these two challenges. I say challenge because it's not easy for anyone, but it's possible. One challenge is to cultivate, take care of that which is good for us but that we don't like, and the challenge to avoid, to abandon that which is bad for us but that we like. Because there are four types of things. Things that we like and they're good for us. things that we don't like and that are bad for us, and we don't need to worry about that, because what we like and is good for us, we try to get that. What we don't like and is bad for us, naturally we try to avoid that. The problems are the other two. What we like that is bad for us, and then what we don't like and that's good for us. But looking towards ourselves with a little bit of maturity, what's more important, the momentary pleasure or a mid and long-term well-being? So here we need to review our priorities. The priority isn't, the question is if I like it or I don't like it. The question is this good for me or not? And here we'll see this gradual path towards a healthy lifestyle, from a physical point of view, an environmental point of view, and an emotional point of view, because it's all connected. Our environment influences our body, influences our mind influences the body, and our body influences our surroundings. It's connected. And one of the first steps for loving ourselves is to abandon what is bad for us and to cultivate what's good for us and make that our habit. And today, unfortunately, it goes in the opposite direction. One day I was with Ken Lakbala and I said, I want this. And he said, what do you mean you want this thing? Then I understood, no, I need this. Okay, if you need this, then let's make it happen. But it's not because I want it that I need to get it. We have, in Tibetan, there's a term that I like. It says, Dupatrunye, which can be translated as surveying one's desires. So if I'm surveying your needs, it means that I'll do everything that you want. Whatever your desire is, I'll do whatever I can for you to get it. I don't know if you've ever seen parents who do that with their children, or in a couple or another relationship, where as soon as someone wants something, the other one tries to satisfy that right away. And sometimes if you want something and I'm not able to get it for you, there's this feeling of guilt. Oh, I'm not able to get for you what you want. But if we want to hurt someone, one of the best ways is to survey his desires. Because as soon as, if I am surveying your desires and I'm bringing you everything that you want, then I'm bringing to you that deeper void where you're not even going to know what you want. This attitude of surveying one's desires is something that we really need to give a stop to. I want more sugar. Is it good for me? Yes. Okay, have sugar. Is it bad for you? Then don't have any. But I want it. And then I'm upset when I don't have it. Okay. Go into abstinence. After a while, it will pass. It's better. Is it better to eat the poison that has a good taste, or suffer because you can't have the flavorful, good tasting poison? I mean, the answer is very easy. It's not easy to put it into practice, though, is it? So there's not much to deepen. It's not complicated. It's about putting into practice what we already know. And I think that it's an illusion. This idea of being able to to enter a very deep path of spiritual growth when we're not, where we don't even put effort into cultivating what's good for us and avoiding what's bad for us. Like, for example, what we put in our own mouths. Is that clear? Because if I start with what I eat, it's very practical. It has to do with our daily life. We have this every day. And if we can make this distinction every day where I don't eat what I like, but I eat what's good for me. And luckily, there are things that I like that are also good for me. And so if there are things that I like but are bad for me, I need to avoid them. And there are things that I like and they're neither good nor bad. Okay, but the main point is to avoid what we like but that is bad for us and cultivate what we don't like but that's good for us. If we start with our diet, what we eat, and we're able to distinguish these two things, it's first of all, it's good for our health, and it's also good for our mental health, because the quantity of sugar, for example, or flours, etc., we often have a way of eating that increases our inflammation. We have a highly inflammatory diet, and increases this craving, this deep, constant craving. And then once I go into abstinence, their mind is not at all relaxed. If I'm used to eating a lot of sugar and then I take away that sugar for a while, I'm more nervous and anxious, etc. I need to allow myself to get past that abstinence so that I can little by little reinforce my good choices, my health. So what I eat is absolutely fundamental in respect towards nature, respect to our own selves. So what I eat, how much I eat, and when I eat. This is all important. How much do I eat? How much should we eat? It said in Tibetan medicine, it says take your stomach and divide it into 4 parts. We have 2/4 of food, 1/4 is liquid, and 1/4 should be empty. It's said that after every meal, one should still have enough room in one's stomach to be able to eat more. We don't overstuff ourselves, but because food should give us energy, but because we eat badly and eat too much, we end up using up our energy to digest all the horrible things that we put in our body. So eating well brings us more mental clarity, gives us more energy, more strength, more balance, etc., etc. On another side, this process, the principal result that it gives us is when I'm able to avoid that which is bad for me and cultivate that which is good for me, I'm changing a deep, deep dynamic that naturally I will apply it elsewhere in my life. Our final objective is an inner behavior, the way I behave and think. What are the inner dynamics that are good for me? What are the dynamics that are bad for me? We get to the point where we say, okay, then anger I see is not good for me. I don't want to, I want to abandon it. Love is good for me and good for others. I want to cultivate this. But to get there, let's start with how we eat. That weakness of not being able to avoid what's bad for us And not being able to do what's good for us is a habit, and then it's applied to everything else. This is a fundamental step. The fundamental step for loving ourselves, because it means it's creating a healthier lifestyle. After the food, let's talk about relationships. Let me give you an example, a simple, practical example. We have a relationship with another person, our mother, our father, our husband, our wife, our child, it doesn't matter. Just imagine a relationship that's quite close and regular. If at a certain point that relationship is harmonious, we get along, there's no conflict. We're quite well. I mean, it's not perfect. It's a little, we put effort. But let's say one day it happens that that other person is nervous. Maybe because it's a hormonal response, or the person had trouble at work, or nervous, who knows why, but let's say, so that person is upset. And normally, when we're not well, where does that come out? It comes out in our closest context. So we get home, and that person attacks me aggressively. The person is aggressive. He complains about something. He projects something onto me because that person's not well, and obviously needs to blame something, and those close to him or her have the greatest probability of being at fault. So that person is aggressive to us, let's say. And when that happens, that harmony that was there before, that balance, what happens? Boom, it just goes, we get it lost. And so one part falls, and in front of that loss of balance, what's our tendency? How do we react? Do we put energy to bring the balance back, or when we see that it's falling, we just pull it down with even more strength? With more strength, and there's this reaction. Is quite tragic, comical. I condemn you because you shouldn't have this behavior towards me or anyone else. And it's wrong to act with aggression. You shouldn't act with aggression. And because you're acting aggressively, then I'm allowing myself to act aggressively towards you. And so what happens? There's an escalation, and little by little, it all falls down. And then little by little, then we need to take the pieces, put them back in balance. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. But the point is, if I'm in front of someone else, and for whatever reason that person acts aggressively and starts to lose balance, the most logical thing to do, given that I want to have a harmonious relationship, would be to put the energy into bringing the balance back. So putting energy in the opposite direction. This is it's difficult, it's tiresome, but it really takes up a lot less energy than actually entering into the conflict and then having to fix the damage after the conflict. Unfortunately, we have this habit of reacting in that same way. So when we're in balance, we're attracted to what keeps the balance. When we're out of balance, we're attracted to what brings to more imbalance. So we should try to really counteract this tendency we have. So if we have a relationship, we can ask, what are the aspects that are what are positive? We're talking about my own behavior. What behavior do I have that is positive? So I know that when I do this, it creates balance. When I do this or that, I know that creates conflict. So in relation to someone else. So the healthier thing to do would be to cultivate what is positive to that relationship and abandon what is bad, respecting at the basis, what is good for me and avoiding what's bad for me. There should be no sense of sacrifice here. For a relationship to be healthy, it can't be balanced based on the imbalance of one of the partners, one of the individuals. So the process is to look gradually aspects of our life, how we eat, how we move, how we relate to our surroundings, how we what purchase, even in our economic health, let's say. I mean, there are things that are good for our economic health and things that are not. So we should abandon what is bad and cultivate what's good, whether I like it or not, because I want to have a stable situation. So how can we in our daily lives apply this? First of all, awareness. Secondly, we need to create space and create trust. The question from before, if I don't know what to project my happiness onto, if I don't know where to project my happiness, this happiness, in my opinion, is really quite simple. It's found mostly in harmony and satisfaction. So it's not about what I have, but how I live that thing. Satisfaction doesn't come from having more things, but it comes from giving value to what we have. It's an inner sense of gratitude. Because in the end, if my filter is squeaky clean, I'll see everything clearly. If I'm in harmony with myself, I'll live the situations in harmoniously. That's where happiness lies. It lies in developing satisfaction, gratitude, respect, harmony, joy, love. And the good news is that even if it's tiresome, it's possible because we are malleable. Our mind is not static. Even if on a very short time ago, scientifically speaking, they thought that the mind was static. It's relatively just a short time ago that science understood more than discovered the plasticity of the brain. Because according to how I think, the brain actually changes. According to the interactions that I have, my microbiome changes. This infinite number of beings that live within us. I mean, have you ever thought, within this body, my body, within my body live more living beings than all the living beings on the planet. Like 47 billion microorganisms within my body. This is an infinite infinite beings within, more than a planet. My body's their home. There were studies that have shown that when we change our microbiome, our actual personality changes. They took 2 little lab rats that were genetically identical, and they divided these rats from by their personality, calm and anxious rats, and then they took the microbiome of the calm rats, the poop of the rats, and they put them in the nervous lab rats. So those micro organisms that were in the calm lab rats, they put in the calm ones, and vice versa. So the microbiome from the calm rats, they put in the nervous ones, and vice versa, and it actually changed the personality of the 2 groups. And here we're spending all this time and energy meditating and doing all this work. Maybe we just need to change our microbiome. Let's find really calm people, and we can do a feces transplant. There was a doctor in Holland quite a few years ago who was faced with this patient, and after having treated this patient, he treated the disturbance, his sickness, but he actually destroyed his digestive system, wasn't able to digest anything. And so this doctor, he said he felt terribly guilty because he cured him of one sickness, but he was destroying him with the medicine. So he looked at Chinese studies, and he saw that, and in antique, ancient China, if a person would come from a faraway land, so that person wouldn't get sick, coming into contact with the new people in this new land, they would take the feces from a newborn and they would add it to a kind of soup, and they would feed this to the traveler. And he thought about that, and he said, well, certainly the microbiome of a healthy person could help. So he was desperate, and he found people who were very, very healthy, and he started to do this fecal transplant, and in a very, very short time, he was cured. Today, this therapy is more evolved. There's nothing strange about it. There's an actual transfer of the microbiome. So just to say how complex we are as beings, our emotions influence our microbiome, and vice versa. We are mutually dependent. We're complex beings. So our microbiome is important for us, and it's in constant transformation. According to our lifestyle, it changes. Our genes, our DNA, for example, is that important to us? I mean, they tell us such. I've never really understood it. But even here, it was discovered not too long ago that our genes are actually changing. The so-called epigenetics. So what happens is, because our nature is of the nature of change, and we change according to the interactions that we have, this change comes where there's interaction, and that shape of change comes through that interaction. And that's why it's possible to change our mind, change our habits, change our body. And that's why it's possible to develop more balance, more satisfaction, more love, more joy, more patience, change our dynamics that hurt us, heal our inner wounds, change our physical state on so many levels. And this is possible because we are interdependent beings and we are constantly transforming. But this brings us a fundamental point. If that transformation is fruit of transformation, if that change is fruit of transformation, then tomorrow, what will happen tomorrow depends on what will happen between now and tomorrow. This brought me to a thought that really touched me. In the last couple of years, there were two moments that really had me think. One was about 3 years ago. I don't know, when was it? It was a day where we're having the Tara retreat, and I was coming from the house towards the temple, and I had this meeting with an insect, and I had an anaphylactic shock. I felt my body. It was a very strange feeling. A kind of, it was like it was itching, but it was like itching from inside, not from the outside. And there was a doctor friend who said, this doctor friend, she saw what was happening and she went running to go get medicine, and then I got up. I finished I finished the meditation. I got up and I'm walking, and then I passed out. Luckily, I woke up with the doctor giving me medicine. But that inner experience of losing consciousness. I mean, I didn't feel bad. I could say that it was a nice experience, but afterwards, when I talked to two doctor friends, I said, this happened. I was red, from my head to my toes, and I was so hot. And they said, you're really lucky. This was very dangerous. And I had this contact with this very obvious, but not so obvious point that at some point I'm going to die. That I could die, actually, at any moment. No, but I'm young. Oh, now I always have this my EpiPen with me all the time. It'll never happen to me again. Question. So, I mean, having the certainty of not waking up tomorrow, there's the only certainty we have is the certainty of death. But when we come into contact with our own mortality on a non-conceptual level, this pushes us to ask ourselves what our priorities are, and we ask ourselves where we're going. And this is important for us. Otherwise, we would say, this would be important, but I'm going to do it after this. I need to do this, that, and the other. And the other moment that had me reflect a lot was maybe 3 years ago. I went together with my grandfather to the seaside on vacation. He was maybe 98 years old. He died when he was 100. And as we were on vacation I was always very close to him, but we didn't spend a lot of our daily time together. When I left Brazil when I was 12 to go to the monastery, instead during this vacation, We spent a lot of time together. I saw this 98-year-old man who was balanced and satisfied and joyous, respectful, who never complained about anything. It was this level of respect and attention was really, and determination. Every day he would take a kilo weight in each hand and do exercises. And I asked myself, but what kind of old person do I want to be? But to get there depends on what happens between now and then. So this brings us a fundamental question. In life goes on. It happens every day. It goes by quickly, actually. And every interaction that I have brings a transformation. But what's more important for me? What I do, what I own, or who I become? For me, it's important who I become. If this process to become a more balanced, a joyous, and healthy person is tiresome along this path, okay, but as long as I'm going in the right direction. I was last Thursday, I went to this Chinese friend, this doctor, and she said, this treatment is painful. I said, oh, okay. It's a pain that is positive, not because I like pain, but because I know that it's a pain that will bring something positive. I'll feel better. It will be good for me. I went there not because I like pain, because I have problems that I need to cure, to heal, and I have faith that this treatment will do that. So when we have this awareness, the problem isn't the pain, because I know that I'm doing something that's good for me. And with this, I don't mean to say that the path is necessarily tiresome, but who I want to be, putting energy into who I want to become, consists of working hard and also of joy. What the problem, if when we go on and we just persist in cultivating what's bad for us on a emotional level, physical level, relational level, this needs to be avoided at all costs. Who do I want to become? Let's try for just a moment to allow ourselves to dream, regardless of how long we're going to live. Let's set a year, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, whatever it is. And we ask ourselves, who do I want to be? I want to be a calm person. I want to be a nervous person, satisfied, dissatisfied. Do I want to be a loving person, or do I want to be constantly on the counterattack or on the offensive? What kind of person do I want to be? Also, when we think about old people, there are two stereotypes, of old people. The two extremes. There's the older person that is patient and wise and balanced, and then the other one who is nervous and is a know-it-all. Who do I want to be? It might seem like a banal question, but it's fundamental, because according to who I want to become, the priority in my life is no longer what I do or what I have. It's not about making the world around me the way I think it should be, including the people around me, but my priority is about how I transform myself as I go forward.
Assolutamente. Noi abbiamo delle condizioni che dobbiamo rispettare.
We have conditions that we need to respect. I need to be able to respect something that is coherent to the reality in which I find myself. An example that I've given several times is no matter no matter how much I would like to be pregnant, I can do everything imaginable. The only possibility that I see is to die and to be reborn as a woman, and then let's see. We need to have a respect the conditions that we have. But there within, there's just an infinite possibilities. We allow ourselves to say, okay, my priority is not what I do, not what I obtain, or if I'm productive or not. We have this idea, this strange idea that we need to be constantly productive, but it's how I'm transforming constantly every day. Am I becoming a more nervous person or more balanced? Am I doing things in my daily life that bring me more inner space or less inner space? Is my lifestyle bringing me to be more nervous, more stressed, or more balanced and more calm? This is the fundamental question. And then we can add more. The way I live my life gradually, am I transforming myself into a person who is more or less coherent to the person that I want to become? And loving oneself is this process of living a life that is coherent with the person that we want to become. We need to try today to be as close as possible to who we want to become. In Buddhism, we use terms like Buddha, Bodhisattva, these beings that are seen as peaceful and joyous. And here they're represented here by these paintings. But the reality is that it is possible for us to reach this state. We start from this fundamental point that no one does anything that he doesn't want to do. Where do we put our energy in the end? In what we want. So the question, really, what do I want? This requires deep, deep sincerity with ourselves. Otherwise, we just keep going round and round. And it requires another act of courage in front of this challenge. And I'm not saying that we should be able to do it right away, but at least set it as an objective. Stop victimizing yourself. Because as long as I victimize myself, then the other is to blame. I don't have any responsibility, and I'm not able to do anything to change the situation. I'd already be a Buddha if everybody did what they should be doing. I know I shouldn't get mad, but have you seen what's been going on? Yeah, it would be better if I were generous, but look at the world that I live in. I should manage my attachment better, but look at what's happening. So as long as I'm projecting outside myself, I victimize myself, I won't really take the situation into my own hands. Buddha said, Danye Danye Guyaying Danye Danye Daying. I am my own protector, I am my own enemy. This is something deep. There's the very small book called there's a small book called the Path of Man, and there's a citation talks about 2 points that we can project, one inside and one side outside, maybe in someone else with whom I find myself in conflict. So to be well, he's saying, as long as we're projecting inside and outside, we lose that only possibility we have to make a real change. Talks about this inner change where we can uphold the world. And here's another aspect that was a story that was told to me by a rabbi. He said that there was a boy, there was a girl, that at a certain point sees the world around him and says, oh, what a horrible world. There's so much that I don't like. I don't like how things are going. I don't know if you've ever had similar thoughts. And this boy says, I want to change the world. I want the world to be different. So he starts doing everything. He was young, and he starts calling friends, and he's telling everyone how things should be, organizes events, and then years go by, and he realizes, okay, a planet is just too much, it's too big for one person to change. I'm going to try to change my country. He tries to do everything. In the meantime, he gets married, has children, life goes on, and then he gets to the conclusion a country is too big for one lone person to change. Okay, what about my city? I know I have so many contacts, I have so much experience. He works many, many years. His conclusion, a city is too big for one person alone to change. Okay, what about my neighborhood? A lot of work, the years go by. His conclusion, a neighborhood is too big for a person to change. What about my apartment building? I know everybody. I have a good relationship with most. I'll be able to do this. He works hard. Years go by, and his conclusion, an apartment building is too big for one person to change. Then he gives up. So, okay, well, what about my family? I'll change my family. I have a great relationship with my wife, my children. I can change them. He keeps trying. Years go by, and then in his desperation, he comes to the conclusion, even one's family is too big for one person to change. There's only myself to change. And he puts the energy to change himself. As Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. And he starts to behave in a certain way and act in complete coherence with what he wants to see in others, and that influences family, that influences the building, that influences the neighborhood, that influences his city and the country and the world. When we make a real and deep change in our way of being, whether we're aware of it or not, we are changing the world. Society is made up of individuals The general culture is made up of each person's individual culture. So even when we look towards the world around us, we say, oh, so much competition, too much materialism, conflict, war, abuse. I agree. How am I living my life? How do I interact with the world? Do I do it with respect, with humbleness, with love, with peace? I'm coherent. If I live within conflict with my inner context, and I live my world in a very materialistic way and with hostility, then the someone saying the greatest gift that we can give to someone who is not well is to be well, and give them that. And this is called the way of the Bodhisattva. For a while I asked myself, but where's compassion in someone who goes to live in the mountains alone to meditate? It's I can't I can't give to someone what I do not have. This doesn't mean that it's not important to help those around us. It's on the opposite. It's fundamental. But if I get to a point where I want to help others on a deeper level to develop compassion, but I don't have that compassion, I want to help someone to have a coherent reality with a coherent view of reality, but I don't have that. I want to help someone to have more concentration, more joy, more inner stability, but I don't have those things. Once I develop those things, then I'm creating the conditions to be able to offer those to others. It's a balance that's created in giving to others and taking for oneself. Those two things go together. And here we just open a small little window into a world that we're not going to get into now. But this process of loving ourselves, one of the most beautiful things that we can do is allowing ourselves on a sincere level to love others. When I love you, when I offer to you, when I take care of you, when I care about your happiness, when I really love you, then I'm already receiving so much from you, because through the love that I feel for you, I'm coming into contact with the most beautiful part of myself. I don't need you to say anything to me or to give me anything in exchange. Simply loving is we receive so much. Once again, what do I want? I know that everyone who's here has his own life and economic situations, familiar situations, addictions. And when I talk about addictions, I mean, he who is here, how many of us here does not have an addiction to the screen, to our cell phone? It's not like an addiction. It is a total addiction. We're not going to open this topic now, but we have our own stories here. But within the life that we lead, the objective for me is not that we all become good Buddhists, but that we can live as healthy as we can. We taking care of our body, taking care of our relationships, our surroundings, our environment. We take care of all the beings around us, take care of our mental states, and we can do it. But where we see that it doesn't work, let's stop putting energy there. When we keep trying, it's not working, let's put energy somewhere else. Because the only thing that I've seen so far, that the more I have, the better off I am, is love, satisfaction, balance, joy, concentration, harmony, our inner qualities. There, for sure, the more I have, the better off I am. It's not like you have like maximum satisfaction and then it's harmful. No. So life is happening here and now. When we get up and go eat and we talk to people, in every moment we're transforming our being. I invite you to act and ask yourself with sincerity, like, where are you going? Where do you want to go? And act accordingly. And then meditation, prayer, art, those are all tools that help us along this path. From singing to dance to painting, meditation, taking walks in nature, these are all things that help us along this process. And it's fundamental for us to see, review, and it's not enough to do it just once, but to again and again look at where we're going, look at our direction. So we love ourselves, we abandon what's negative for us and cultivate what's good for us. And another thing, set our high objective, low expectations, and maintain a constant effort. So my high objective, I want to be a loving, balanced person. A low expectation is, okay, I understand that it's not good to get angry, but I'm not there yet. So I walk in that direction, but I don't impose upon myself the expectation of having already reached that objective. And this same for others. I'd like you to be a more balanced, a happier, more joyful person, but I don't expect you to be that already. I'm at your side. I'm at your side to be a positive influence so you can become that. So that first question, where do we come from? My very personal answer is I don't know and I don't care so much. But the question that is the pertinent and is, where are we going? Now it's time for our final dedications. I thank you. I thank you for being here, not just in Albagnano here at our center, but being here with an open mind, an open heart, because here sharing something together really helps everyone along this process. So really, I thank you for being here with an open mind and an open heart as we walk together.
Kutse rapten chin nam karatin le chokchur ge padang losan tempe drume sasum ge druwe munsel takto ne gyurchi kewa kuntu yanda lama dan rame cheki pela longche chin sada lamge yente rabzo ne dorche change kopa nyurto basho Nimo dele tsindele, nime kuyan delekshin, Ninsen takto delek pe koncho sumki chingi lop koncho sumki ngodrubot sol koncho sumki trashisho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us. Realize, achieve all our realizations, and sprinkle the path of our lives with
semdan denguru chi chonam kuna lyedan sem donga neba chinye teda dagi sonam gi tega gyatso to parasho in tutte le direzioni qualunque corpo
in all directions. Any sick or suffering body that may exist, may through my positive my positive prayers, may they reach an ocean of happiness. Okay, so at 3:30 there will be the taking of refuge for anybody who'd like to assist. Sorry, it's at dawn or at dusk, at night or midday. May the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.